Hello, Mr. Chibuye.
Thanks.
Such a blessing. I've been very excited to have this conversation with you.
And likewise.
Thanks.
You can imagine.
To begin with, I want to say congratulations. 20 years with PwC. It shows that you are obviously adding a lot of value, and the loyalty also, I think it's commendable.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Chaka,
yeah.
Pompi, whichever.
Yeah.
It's been, time flies, huh?
Yeah.
Time really does fly.
Yeah.
It's been very exciting. If I say I've learned a lot, I can't quantify just what it's all meant. And yeah, it's incredible that in what seems like a blink of an eye,
yes,
I'm here 20 years. It's almost half my life.
Exactly.
So it's, from whichever way I look at it, I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly at all. And I thank God for the opportunity to still be here.
Wow. Yeah. So you can brag now that 2 decades. It just is got a ring to it.
I've been PwC in the profession for 2 decades.
Wow.
I totally agree. I'll use that one.
Actually, with me, the other day I realized. So for me, since Miju, it's been 10 years.
Oh,
so I can brag a decade. You are ahead.
2 decades.
2 decades. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic.
So I prepared some questions. Sure. Of course, excited to mine your mind and see the experience that we can learn from in these 20 years.
Yeah.
As a content creator, of course I know you personally, but it's something that's a fortunate thing because I always follow your content, and I'm grateful that I can actually have an actual conversation with you. And so I prepared some questions here, hopefully to mine a lot of the wisdom that you've gained even with your experience as a leader.
Yeah.
So to begin with, to kick it off, is this question: what teachings, books, or resources on leadership have influenced you?
Yeah. That's a very loaded question, yeah?
Yeah.
And it's because, leadership has its seasons, right? And you go through different phases, you encounter different challenges, different circumstances, and you call upon different resources, knowledge bases, etc., in order to react and respond and be effective in that time.
Yeah.
So if I can sort of start with almost like building blocks, right?
Yes.
The Bible in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Yes.
In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths, right? And that for me, I think I don't like saying I've got a favorite scripture, but it's an important one for me. For a simple reason that I've always known that in different circumstances, you may know your destination, but the path to get there may not always be clear. So the end goal is known. What are we trying to do? But how are you going to do it is not always clear, especially in the world where the world is changing. There are so many forces that you're encountering at different times. You still know you need to deliver X. How are you going to do it? So then the part of my faith, which is saying, look, if I believe in God, all I need to focus on is where is He directing my next footstep, right? That if I'm heading in a certain direction, I'll get there. I don't know how exactly, which route exactly I'm going to take. Is it the same one I took yesterday? I don't know. But that for me is very important in terms of my faith and how it goes. Then I learned a lot from my late father. He was an accountant as well, a professional. He was at Deloitte for many years. He was at Deloitte for 28 years. So in a few years,
so there's legacy.
Yeah. So in a few years' time, I may have been in the profession longer than he was.
Oh wow!
And he taught me a number of different things. And one thing that stands out, it sounded a bit harsh at the time, is that the world owes you nothing. Okay? The world doesn't owe you anything. Right? And that for me always inspired the need to exert a certain degree of control over what I'm doing. Not to be dependent. Look at what I need to do and the bit that I need to play in whatever equation that needs to happen or unfold. So that is also very pertinent for me. Now, look, if I know that the world owes me nothing, it means that then influences how I must think, how I must act, how I must apply myself every day. Because if I don't do that, then there's nothing to suggest that there is, or by default, a helping hand, at least not in the world. So making your own space and continue to evolve from there, I think, is also important. So that was one lesson from my father. I mean, there are many, but that, and given we've got this conversation, I'll probably pick from a few different places. Then there's a thought, which is my own, which is, say, look, at the end of the day, I'm here, right? I've been given and blessed with this opportunity to lead a great organization. If the Lord doesn't come, say, 400 years, how will the people who live then know that I was here today, right? So that is a thought on my mind. And when I mean, it sounds like a fairly airy-fairy one, but in reality, what it is a question of purpose, right?
Yes.
That what am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? So yes, I can be an accountant, but what sort of an accountant am I going to be? Yes, I can be a leader. What sort of a leader do I have to be? And how do I then continue to evolve so that I remain relevant? And for me, the word relevance and the thought of relevance is one that's also quite fundamental, because it also helps me to shift from one time or one season to another, because what was important and critical 10 years ago is not important and critical today. Yet it was relevant then. So I had to understand, apply, and work with it. And then today, 10 years later, or maybe 20 years later, there are other forces, factors that I need to be able to assimilate, work with, and apply on a day-to-day basis. So staying relevant is also a very important thought for me. Then I drew a lot as well from mentors, and I've had the privilege of interacting with a number. But Reverend Bruce Musidi, who's my pastor, stands out, right? And he has a thought, and it's actually the tagline for our church, Mount Zion, that we are to transform lives in order to transform the world, right? So the question is, which lives am I impacting? And how am I and those lives impacting the world? Right? And that PwC and the profession gives me a platform. And that platform is simply like a springboard to a different level, a different conversation. It gives me access to people, gives me opportunity to share my thoughts and really reach a broad number of people, organizations, decision makers, etc., etc. So that is also a fundamental thought. Then you asked the question, I mean, you spoke about books. I mean, I've read a number of different, but From Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Jim Collins
actually stands out for me.
Wow.
So look, at the end of the day, it's okay to be good. What does it take to really be great? And really applying yourself in terms of with various teachings, principles that are there is something that has been key. So, but suffice to say, it continues to evolve. It's such a broad question in terms of the base from which I try to build my leadership. But I think those probably stand out. And
amazing.
Give you a few perspectives.
Amazing. Wow. Just to add to that, actually, interestingly, I got for my dad's last birthday. That was the book I got him for his birthday.
It's a very good book.
He's an amazing author.
I've read it like 3 times. I've listened to it like twice. I watched the summaries on YouTube just to keep those perspectives going.
And I guess putting to thought what you've said in regards to 400 years from now, the good might be forgotten 400 years from now, but the great definitely. So
you have a better chance.
Exactly, I hear you. Wow, that's amazing. So second question. In an ever-changing world, what strategies do you use for fostering a culture of innovation and adaptability?
So I spoke a bit about the question of relevance. And for me, that's really important. In fact, one day I'll write a book and it will be called The Pursuit of Relevance. I've already got the title.
The Pursuit of Relevance.
Pursuit of Relevance. Because it speaks to, it's not like a destination, right? You are constantly looking for it because the times and seasons are always changing, right?
Wow.
Now, with that thought, I came to realize, and this transition has happened during the course of my career, because earlier in my career, what was most important was being technically sound in whatever subject it was that I needed to be addressing or be engaged on, right?
Yes.
And that was it was fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a sound accounting expert, a sound auditor, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
As the roles have evolved and responsibilities have increased, it then became obvious that to be a technically astute at each and every aspect of the whole range of things that I'm responsible for is not practically possible. Okay? So then what is it? How do you then do it? Because you go out into the world, you're expected to be a professional of substance, and to be knowledgeable about anything and everything. But is it actually possible? So over time, important for me is, number one, at least knowing what are the things that are important for me and the organization, right? So what are the themes for this particular season? And making sure that I have an idea. What do I need to know? So separating between what do I need to know and what is all that is there to be known, right?
Sort of an inventory of what
correct.
you need to.
So of everything that is on this particular topic or subject, this is what can be known.
Yes,
right?
yes.
What do I need to know specifically, right? What else do we need to know? And this is where now the power of the team comes alive. Okay, you can give different individuals different responsibilities such that it's the collective that has the full breadth and depth of knowledge on a particular subject where we need to be knowledgeable, right? So we're talking innovation.
Yes.
Right. So I have a role that I need to play, whether it's leadership, whether it's the vision, whether it's the strategy, and it's then building a team to then plug into that.
Wow.
I also look at running a fairly open organization. I try to encourage teams to be as open, as creative as they can be. It's important because there's a lot that you don't actually know, right? In fact, that's also important to know what you don't know. Right? So knowing that this I don't know is also very important in the process. And that's where you now leverage the strength of the team to fill in the gaps as you also focus on what you need or where you need to develop in that particular process. So a very strong team, very important. I think staying up to date with what's happening, but also starting to look ahead and have some vision. It's almost like being a prophet of some sort, right? Because in this particular industry, if when something becomes topical or becomes important is when you're starting to invest in it, you're probably late. So in fact, what has happened over time is that professionals, businesses like myself have actually been the ones to point at what the next trends are, and then the rest of the world then catches up.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of investment in people, a lot of investment in myself, a lot of networking, a lot of consultation, a lot of looking ahead and engaging, figuring out what today's problems are, what tomorrow's solutions look like, and all of that. And really fostering a very open organization. For me, I believe it's not my responsibility to take charge of each and every opportunity or each and every innovation or each and every product or service that we have to deliver. What I must do is create an environment where people are free to express themselves, to experiment, to share ideas, to reach out and consult, to provide solutions, and then to support them, right? If we need to invest in a particular direction, we do that. So those are the sorts of things that I do. So I spend a lot of time looking at trends, consulting, engaging, and then also then sharing that information and encouraging people to really bring out their creative best. And I guess also important in there is a very diverse team, right? Different perspectives, different natural skill sets, different strengths and areas, so that it really complements each other when you put it all together as a knowledge-based organization to then drive into the future with confidence.
Yes. What might take home from what you just said, the inventory of knowledge. So what do I need to know? It has fascinated me. I'll definitely apply it.
I think there's so many things that you can know.
Yes.
That need to be known.
Yes.
Me, as a leader, what out of this, what do I need to know? Usually I need to know what's the impact for our business, what's the impact for our clients, what's the impact for society. Why does a board chairman or a CEO need to know about this? What do they need to be focused on? The intricacies of how exactly the technology works. For example, I pick that as an example. Perhaps it's not for me to know at any particular time, but someone must know it. You know what I mean?
Yes. So
it's that then it's almost like segregating duties and responsibilities.
Exactly.
But in totality, we are effective.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So just so I can probe on that question, how do you sort of ensure that you are future ready or that you are future proof in your knowledge and in how your posture in regards to the knowledge and
So I spend time. I dedicate time to think.
Wow.
Just time to think. In any given week, I set aside time when my mind is not cluttered with what's happening today. I'm looking at what's happening today. How does it impact what's potentially happening? What may happen tomorrow? Consulting others. And what they perceive as important, and also, I mean, let's be, if I'm totally frank, one of the quick and easy ways, especially for Zambia, is like generally in a number of these trends, what is shaping the world, Zambia is lagging behind, right? So we just have to look outside and say, China and the US are adopting 5G technology.
Exactly, yes.
And it's not rocket science that you may be on 3G today, which we are not, but in a matter of time, we'll also be on 5G.
Exactly.
So then you must then start asking the question, okay, so when that technology finally becomes available to Zambia, given what I know of the context that is Zambia, what effect is it likely to have? And that is then you start to think about it. So some things are easier to do than others, simply because, especially when you talk like technology.
Exactly, yes.
Where Zambia is,
we're
usually electric vehicles, right? There are countries that are light years ahead of Zambia. Zambia is still, I don't know, it's like a lunar eclipse when you spot an electric vehicle. What is it that they're doing there? So we don't, some of what we call innovation, you don't even need to like completely create. We're just simply adapting or adopting what is working elsewhere and making it relevant here. But I think it's then saying, okay, how does it work here? What makes it relevant? What are the potential stumbling blocks? What do different people need to know along the way? So those are some of the things. I mean, there's other things you think more unique or bespoke to the environment. But a lot of it, because of where you are. The important thing for me is to set aside time where there's no noise. I'm not thinking about the potential crisis that is today or responding to a particular situation that's today, but actually set aside time to think about the future and engage in what I think is relevant for them.
Exactly, Wow. Amazing. Third question. What roles does feedback play in your personal development and how can it be leveraged effectively?
Feedback. Yes. Very, very important, Because, there's no one who's perfect.
Yes.
We all have blind spots. We all have our strengths. But you don't know what you don't know, especially about yourself. And it's what others see. And it becomes even more important as you assume and take on more responsibilities as a leader, that you're able to receive feedback. Now, feedback is broad, right? It can be feedback on me as an individual in terms of my style, how I do things. It can be feedback on a project and how successful otherwise it is. But it's positive and negative as well in terms of what did we do right, what didn't we? So for me, it's a question of there's a process of continuous improvement. And feedback is one of the main ingredients into that process of continuous improvement. That we realize that none of us is perfect, right? You may be a superstar, you may be the best that you are, but perfection is something that we don't have. We pursue, some will argue it's vain to pursue perfection, but as long as you're not perfect, you may be excellent, there's still room for improvement. What we continue to pursue is improvement, because it's in that improvement that you continue to grow. So for me, it's different perspectives and dynamics, right? So as an individual, feedback from the people that I work with, right? Ours is a people business. People need to be motivated. They need to be inspired. They need to be they need to have a stake in what we're doing as a business. They must feel valued. Do I do that as well as I should? And they'll tell me, here, yes, here, no. You could perhaps do better here. When I do that, they feel better. I do better as well as a leader. When it then comes to different circumstances, projects, engagements, you name it, it's a question of understanding. And it's from both sides, positive and negative. When things go very well, okay, could be a fluke. That could be as a result of very deliberate efforts. But understanding the why. So why have we done as well as we have? Why is the client so happy with the service that we provided, right? What lessons can we learn? What can we take out of there and replicate elsewhere? It's very important, right? More important when things don't go well. Being honest, okay, here perhaps we fell short. And getting that input, internally and externally, is all ingredients into the continuous improvement process. And it's fundamental. I strive to be as open as possible with everyone, the people I work. I can tell you a fun fact, if you like. PwC in Zambia has got over 200 employees. I know all of them by name, right? I know all of them by name. And I challenge them, look, if I meet you in the corridor and I don't know your name, I'll give you 500 kwacha. Okay? Now, the reason why I've done that, it's true. I mean, it's not a rumor. The reason why I've done that is that I want people to be as free as possible to tell me something as directly and as raw as they can, right? So that if we need to deal with the issue, if there's an issue to be dealt with, we deal with it. Also, if they want to give me a thumbs up for something that they think is good, they do that, because in both situations, I'm learning something, I'm growing, and we are improving in the process. Perhaps they are the ones seeing a blind spot of mine, which I'm not seeing. And if they can help me shine a light on it, we're all better off.
Wow. So that's creating an environment where feedback moves easy.
And moves easily, it moves quickly, it moves unedited. Or as unedited as it can be, so that the root issues are dealt with if need be. Or if in fact it's on the other side and we're doing a good job, we keep doing that. Because that's also important.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I know how that's vastly different from, I worked a bit in HR and, the hierarchy of things.
I mean,
the director's offices were right at the top.
I mean, organizations are different. The dynamics are different. But in a people organization like mine, we don't sell cars or sell computers. It's a very personal organization where the vibe of the organization, how engaged the team members are, has a direct effect on how well we're able to serve our clients, as well as everything else that we're able to do. So it's just that important.
Yes, wow. Yeah. That's actually amazing. Fourth questions. What strategies do you use to build and maintain strong relationships with your team members?
My team members. So I've already touched on one. So
yes, exactly.
Teams is important for me. So number one, obviously, I've learned everyone's. So very simple as it seems, I've learned everyone's name, and we have good fun with it. So people feel a bit. They may not. They'll come and see me, just say, "What's my name?" You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes I've gotten it wrong. Other times, a lot of times, very rarely do I get it wrong. But just in that, come, take a seat. Let's have a conversation. Yes. Can I give you a piece of water? What's on your mind? What are you working on? That's something that I do. It's a bit of work, but I like it, and I do it quite consistently.
And the 500 kwacha for motivation to remember.
For people to come. Sadly, in a lot of instances, I don't pay. So I don't pay because I remember. So
that's fantastic.
But behind the scenes, it's a lot of work to make sure that I get it right. And I think team members appreciate that.
Would you say you are generally good with names, though?
No.
Seriously? So you had to actually work this thing?
In fact, if my wife... she's always introducing relatives to me. Who was that again? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But so I'm okay. In this, I'm okay, but I'm not great.
Wow.
Right? But so it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Wow.
It looks easy, but it's a lot of work because naturally I'm not.
Yes.
So that's one. In terms of building the team, and also I try to have fun and don't take myself too seriously all the time, because
It's one of the things that, I mean, from the content you create and from knowing you personally, it's one of the things that I think you stand out on that front. Yeah.
Well, some of the stuff you read, say, why is the CEO talking like this? I say, no, it's simply because I don't take myself that seriously all the time, right? Life is too short. There's a lot of pressure and stress, or just by default, in terms of the type of work that we do. So have as much fun as possible in the process. Life is too short to focus on always being in a stressful environment, but you can be in a stressful environment or an environment with a lot of stresses and still have a good time. So how do you do that? Having fun. I think I won't be the judge of it. I think I've got some sort of a sense of humor, but I mean, I'll let others judge whether it's a good one or not.
No, you
so I try and
do.
apply that as I work as well. Try and take an interest in people. Obviously, with a big team, you can't take an interest in everybody. It's difficult to the depth to which you can achieve, but it's the people that I work with. Then simple things. If I'm working with somebody on a particular assignment, I'm also a bit strategic. I try and we've got a meeting today. I try and make our very first interaction about something else. So I know that at 10 I'm going to talk to Chaka. Right? Now I know earlier I need to talk to you before, and we just have a conversation. How are you doing? I'm also gauging, depending on the type of meeting we're supposed to have. Is it one that we can have? One that we should defer? So if it's just something that's business as usual, but some small things like that. So taking a real interest in people, and then also very simply. There's something that I've started doing very recently. Even when I'm writing emails, I've stopped writing to people, I trust that you are well. How do I know, right? It's presumptuous. I ask the question, how are you? And I expect you to answer, right?
Oh, wow.
I mean, you can at least answer my question. When you come to me, how are you?
How are you?
But I mean, it sounds small, but it's something that
there's a big difference.
Exactly. So an email from me, especially if I'm writing like just to one person, one-on-one, cut that out. Ask, how are you? And more often than not, you get a response. And sometimes whatever you wanted to say goes away because there's potentially something that needs to be dealt with. So it's small things. It's not even big things. I mean, there's small things. Meet people outside in a less formal setting and just engage that way. But they're just small things which I've adapted over time, which I think have helped in that regard.
And it's very interesting to see the work environment. You know, I remember the first time I watched a documentary on Google. And I mean, the culture, I think they were, the work culture, I mean, I feel like they were one of the first to sort of it almost felt like the office is now become a playground to some extent. And, you know, initially I used to question like, wow, I mean, I don't know if people would actually work in this kind of environment. They can get a masseuse and go for a spa.
I mean, we're not yet there, but the point is,
of course, but
you spend a lot of time in the office with your colleagues in this particular environment. Surely it can be one that is at least one that you're looking forward to be in, or one that at least doesn't stress you to be there. I mean, there's obviously work to do in that regard. It's not perfect, but it's very important to have a work environment that I think encourages people to be at their best, because if they're at their best, then they're likely to deliver the best.
Wow. Fifth question. How do you measure team performance?
Measuring team performance is a difficult one. And, well, it's easy and difficult, and I'll explain. So, personally, I'm that guy who thinks there's no such thing as doing your best. Okay? Because if I said to myself, I have done my best, it implies there's nothing else I could have done to improve from where I am. So that's my default setting. But the problem with that setting is that you are then continuously chasing after something. So even when things go well, you're looking for where can things go better, right? And in the process, you take for granted the progress that you've made, and it can be an overwhelming type of environment. I'm saying this after I've learned this over
exactly,
time, right?
yes,
So
yes,
that
yes.
when you just finish a project, the first thing is, right, guys, done. So next one, what can we do better?
Yes.
At some point, you need to come down and say, you know what, guys, we did all right.
Yes, yes.
And enjoy the moment.
Celebrate the
pat
milestones.
yourselves. It may not even have been as you envisioned it, but it got done. Pat yourselves on the back. And then a bit later, maybe look at, okay, how do we then improve, etc. So the first thing in terms of how have we performed, right? So it's a question of expectations, and different stakeholders, different people in an equation have got expectations. There's expectations from the client, which hopefully are defined in terms of what are we supposed to do, by when, how, etc., and for what purpose. Internally as well, as a team that's working, what do we want to achieve out of this? What learnings must happen? Who must do what and when? What areas do we need to improve based on what we did previously? And then, I mean, in a lot of instances, like in the professional career that I have, the performance is defined. There's a certain time when something is required. There's a certain standard that is required. There's a certain cost within which it must be delivered, etc. So those things I think are obvious, and you define them and then move. But I think for me, a lot of it, especially in recent times, looks at also the how you do what you're doing, right? So you could deliver, but in the process, everyone was working overtime, everyone is stressed, everyone is cracking in terms of having gone to such lengths to be able to. Good. So have you actually achieved what you're supposed to? The answer is no, right? Or the answer is debatable, right? So I think the how, especially from an efficiency perspective in terms of how we're improving, from a general enjoyment and motivation and engagement perspective as well with how the team members are feeling after delivering, I think that's also playing an ever more important part in the performance assessment process. And I think adding value is always a loosely used term, right? So what do you mean adding value, right? But where you're able to get a reaction from a client about how the experience has been, how insightful it was working with you, how seamless it was, that also adds to the process in terms of how performance is measured. So you've got the standard, which are usually in an industry like ours are usually clearly defined.
Exactly.
And there's the other softer elements as well in terms of especially the how and the impact. I think that's the right word.
Yes.
What impact have you delivered internally? How much have staff learned? How much have they grown on an assignment? With the client, how are they feeling after having worked with you? Are they looking for you to pack up and go as quickly as possible? They can't look forward to their next interaction with you. So it's a mixed bag. Some easy to quantify, others a bit softer, but that's how the combination is how I would say I measure performance.
Wow. As somebody who's got a small enterprise, what word of encouragement would you give me in regards to how I should structure measuring performance? Of course, I know about key performance indicators and and the like. But are there any special? I mean, your organization has got a lot of stuff, but I want to bring it down to that micro level. A young Zambian entrepreneur wants to monitor performance. What systems they would need to put in place?
This is a thought that has been evolving over time, and it comes from a book. The 4 disciplines of execution, right?
4 disciplines of execution.
Oh,
okay. Wow.
And the thought is simply, what are the one of these, I'm paraphrasing, what are the 1 or 2 things that if I did and monitored would make everything else either less significant or irrelevant? So that thought. And it's something that I'm trying to apply as well, because there's so many things which you can be doing, so many things you can be tracking, so many things you need to do. But it's a question of priorities, right? But not just priorities, prioritizing the right thing. Now, different businesses will have different priorities. So it's difficult to say this is your KPI or this is what you need to focus on. But you understanding your business and then saying, of everything that I do, if I did one thing, what is it? Or if I have to do one thing, what is it? All right.
Amazing.
Where I've sort of adjusted that thinking is that, especially for example, where you've got multiple roles. So an owner managing the business might have responsibilities for finance, for selling, for operations, for administration, etc. So it may not be practical that you have one thing which cuts across everything.
Exactly. Yes.
But at least within each of the spheres of responsibility, a narrower focus. So I'm the guy who, when I first took on this role, I had a huge spreadsheet, KPIs and who's supposed to be doing what and meetings that I need to do. Then it started feeling a bit like trying to boil the ocean, right? Like you're trying to do so many different things that you can't then narrow down on what specific impacts it's having. Then took a step back and said, actually, perhaps there's a different way of doing this. Rather than broad, being narrow, but narrow and very targeted, and also for different seasons. So for a particular season, we went through COVID and we were dealing with crisis, for example. So the way you manage a business in crisis and the way you manage a business when the times are benign is different. So the way and the things that I was focusing on then are different to the things that I would focus on in slightly different times. So I think that's what's important when it comes to what you need to monitor. So it has to be dynamic. For me, it has to be very focused. The greater the thought that goes into what you're tracking, also with the context of it being as impactful or the most impactful of everything is what I think is important, and perhaps a thought that we need to explore a bit more, because sometimes we're doing too much, other times we're doing too little.
Yes.
So for me, the idea is to do as little as possible, but it needs to be exactly the right things that you're doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think from what you've said, you've used the word impact. There are two words we've seen: relevance
and impact.
And on the impact side, I think I really love that I asked that question, because I recently came across this 80-20 rule that 20% of our activities lead to 80% of the results. And obviously that 20% that's impact.
Exactly.
Yeah. So basically, in narrowing, you mean that focus on that 20% rather than.
So it's like sniper fire. Rather than a shotgun or machine.
Exactly. Yes.
Because time is limited.
Energies need to be preserved.
So sniper fire, what do I need to do? Rather than machine gun or shotgun, and try to figure out, okay, how did we?
Exactly. More resources are required. More time is required for machine gun. That's really amazing. So moving on to my sixth question. We know your role requires you to attract top talent.
Yeah.
So what red flags do you look for when evaluating candidates in your recruitment process? We want to know how you pick a winning team.
A winning team. Yeah. So we do, because we recruit quite a bit.
Yes.
Let me give you a statistic.
Yes.
So we just brought on 28 people.
Okay.
We started with 2,500.
2,500.
Yes, correct. For just one. So we brought 28. We started with 2.5, so just over 1% of where we started.
Wow.
So that's the method in terms of what we do. But there's obviously quite a lot of people coming in.
Yes.
And there's different things. Okay, so maybe also answer it two ways. What we look for, then also red flags, right? Because it sort of answers.
Exactly.
You can invert the
exactly. Yes.
So a lot of what we look for is just your attitude as a starting point.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Someone who has the right attitude, you can teach anything.
Right?
Attitude, for me, the biggest thing is someone who takes initiative. I love that, right? Because they're going to make my life easier. Right?
And the initiative can't be taught.
You can't be taught. So see something we need to sort out, sort it out, bring your solution. You're speaking my language, right?
Yes.
Obviously, aptitude is important. So ability to grasp and matters quickly and move. Interestingly also is just, like life, because of how broad and diverse this sort of organization is, people who have a very narrow focus generally can't make it here. Very steeped in their ways, not very keen to listen to alternative views, explore different thoughts.
Old wine skins, if you can say.
Yes. So the guy or girl may be extremely talented,
Yes.
distinctions, but as far as they know, they're the best thing since sliced bread. Like nobody can. I'm always right. Not easy to teach.
Yes.
That's usually a red flag.
I see.
But that one, you can have the best degree or qualification in the world.
Yeah.
That one will say, no, this one, perhaps not for here, because the nature of the organization, based on what I've described and the way we go about solving problems.
So is that because of how dynamic your problems are sometimes, that you need to, you can't be a textbook kind of.
So you can't have a narrow view. There's only one way that we can do it, and that way is my way. Right? Because the best solutions that we deliver come from working together as
the collective intelligence.
So we need someone who has an open mind. Now, as we engage, interview, you're able to make inferences from the way someone conducts themselves, the way that they talk, the way that they describe certain things. So you won't ask them, okay, so are you very flexible in how you work with other people, right?
Yes.
But you will lead them you will be having a conversation, and you're able, after a fairly methodical training or methodical interview, you're able to pick up and they wouldn't even know it.
Yes, they wouldn't know that that's what
what you're aiming for, that plus other assessments that we do. So red flag, definitely someone who can't work in teams, very narrow in terms of their thinking and approach. Obviously, any questions around the ethical sort of level or standard is a challenge because of the type of thing that we do. I mean, everybody, you have to be trusted. So if someone can't be trusted and those sorts of vibes come up, then you have a challenge. But on the other side, obviously, attitude is very important. Aptitude is very important. People are also keen,
you mentioned aptitude.
Yeah, aptitude.
What is? I don't want to pretend like I know aptitude, but I've heard aptitude, but I've never really.
So aptitude, I'm really talking about your ability to grasp concepts very quickly.
I see. Okay.
But for me, what goes a step further is not, because we can look at your results and your distinction holder, which suggests you have a fairly high aptitude, right?
Yes.
But are you then able to apply what it is you learned or what you know to different scenarios and situations?
Exactly.
So is that where we take, okay, this is what you know, but are you able to apply it to this situation, which may be different to what you knew previously? And it's there that you see someone's ability then to adapt and go.
Wow.
So those are the broad sorts of someone who is keen to learn, keen and willing. So it speaks to willingness and ability. So the attitude is your willingness, and then your aptitude is your ability, right? So you may be willing to learn, but if you don't have the aptitude, then you won't go through. You may have a high aptitude, but if your attitude is such that you're not open and accommodating, then again you won't go. So you can call it attitude and aptitude, willingness and ability, all of that put together. What we're looking for, but in that you can invert what I've told you and you can figure out some of the red flags.
Yes, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very interesting. Actually, just to quickly, there's a short documentary I was watching, which I found very fascinating. It was, I guess maybe it was measuring aptitude.
Yeah.
Because what it was saying, it was a very simple experiment where they got some really obviously smart guys, but they said that obviously the difference between knowledge and wisdom is the wisdom is the application of the knowledge.
Exactly.
So simple test, they said, what can you do with a brick? List as many in 1 minute, list as many things you can do with a brick. So the more, very strict ones just say, okay, you can build a house with it, you can build it. And then the ones who got the highest score, the ones say, okay, you can use it to stop the door from closing.
Paperweight and whatnot.
You can use it as they used it in different, and that was a higher symbol of intelligence and, practical knowledge in society. So that's very interesting. Seventh question. How do you stay organized? And this question, I think, is if I was to highlight one, which which is the one I would very interested to know, is this one. So how do you stay organized and manage multiple responsibilities as a husband, father, country senior partner, cyclist, writer, content creator, brother, deacon, and church trustee? A mouthful.
Yes.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
How do you organize that? How do you navigate that and still stay relevant in every space?
Yeah. So important for me is, so I'm very deliberate. I mean, it sounds, I've not always been as organized, and I mean, I probably still have some way to go, because part of it obviously is being clear. So remember, I said, what do I have to, so previously I spoke about what do I need to know, what do others need to know. In this case, is what do I need to do, what do others need to do, right? So in each of those different areas where I have responsibilities, I try and figure out what do I have to do, what do others have to do. So that's a question of prioritizing. Then I'm also very deliberate about how I manage my time. Okay, so I've taken time to study how does my energy evolve during the course of the day. So I'm a morning person, right? I have no problem getting up at 3 in the morning and being awake the whole day, right? If I have to. And I often do. Like I'll go out.
So your day often starts at 3?
Some days. Wow. 3:30, 3:50. That's if I'm cycling a long distance before coming to work, right? So I'll explain to you briefly. So part of it is, when is my energy at its best?
At its peak, yeah.
So peak energy for me is morning. So morning, I want to do my most intense exercise routine. So I'll get up 3:30, maybe 3:50, depending on what I want to do that particular day. If I'm just going for a fairly short cycle ride, maybe even like 5, because I'll just go for 20 kilometers. If I want to do 40 plus, then I'll wake up a bit early, because I've also got a school run to do. I know that I must. Oh,
you actually make school runs?
Yeah, I do school runs. Oh, wow. I have to do. So that's part of my time management as well. I'll explain.
Wow.
So I'll do my morning. That's important. In the morning, I need to do my devotion. So that's in the time that's there. In the morning, I need to plan my day, just think about it briefly in terms of, okay, so what are the 3-4 things that I need to get achieved today? So just sort of start to do that. When I get to the office in the morning is when I want to do complicated things, right? So if I look at the whole list of what I need to do, there's things which are very complicated. I need to have a difficult meeting, those sorts of things. I'd rather do them in the morning, because I know that's when my energy is at its peak. Other things which are less so admin stuff, I need to sign off some documents. I need to approve certain payments, review payments, maybe towards the end of the day, right? They don't need that much energy. So really aligning my day to how my energy sort of evolves is important. So I'll do that. I'll set aside, and then being very deliberate about the things I must do. So whatever happens, I must finish my exercise routine by 6 a.m. because I have to do the school run in the morning. The reason I have to do the school run in the morning is because I've got 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. They're young, and every day I've got at least when schools are open, I've got a 45 minute opportunity to engage with them.
Exactly.
And so it's a very structured engagement. As we're going to school, we'll do a devotion together. We'll talk about what's happening in class, what they need to do. We'll listen to Pompi and draw some lessons out of whichever song it is that they were listening to. So it's a very deliberate time that I've found is also very effective in terms of what I do. I'll get to the office, and I'm very structured. Usually my calendar is 3 or 4 weeks ahead, right? So on a weekly basis, I'll sit down. I'm privileged and happy to have a very good team around me. I'll sit down with my team that helps me with these things, my PA primarily, and we plan 3-4 weeks. I mean, not in all detail, but at least the big things that are happening, forecast, we'll slot them in. The things I know I must do, but I'm not seeing time allocated to them. I'll allocate it. And then the time will then start unfolding as it is. So that's really it, right? I've got time set aside for, I try to be home early, have to have dinner with the family, time with my wife, social time with my wife and kids, time with my wife alone, time with my kids alone. Usually Sunday afternoons, I'll take them. They like cycling as well.
They like cycling as well?
I think so. Maybe I'll post them, but I don't know. They're happy. And we go out and spend some time together, time to engage with my mother. All of that needs to happen. So I think it's really being deliberate, and progressively some things I've started to cut down on, especially if I don't have to be the one to do it. But the most important is, the two most critical for me is understanding how, taking time to having understood how my energy sort of evolves over the course of the day, and aligning to that, and then also being very deliberate about how I plan my time. So I can tell you what I'm doing in the next. If we start with my calendar, you'll see what we're doing next week, what I'm doing next week and the week after, in all those different areas where I have something. I actually tell people I'm never busy. There's just something I'm doing, right? There's a small difference.
I love that. Yes.
Because I feel like when I say, Chaka, I'm busy, what am I saying about your time? You've also got stuff that you're doing, right?
Yes.
It's just that I'm doing something right now, but if we are structured, we can make time for anything that we need to make happen, and just prioritize it and get it happen and make it happen. So I think those are some of the things that I do. It's not perfect. I mean, sometimes I plan for unplanned circumstances. So there are days where I try and, even if I'm planning very well, I try and leave some spaces in between, because I know for a fact there's a call that will come that I didn't anticipate. There's an email that will come that I didn't anticipate. There's someone walking into the office I didn't anticipate, and they will tell me something or give me certain information which will arrest my day. And I must deal with it.
Yes.
So I've also learned to sort of plan for that.
Wow.
Ahead. Yeah. But also important is recognizing seasonality, right? So there are certain seasons in the year where I'm very busy, or there's a lot happening. Right? Let me use that term. There's a lot happening, without a doubt, right?
Yes.
And that's just how it is during that period. In less intense periods, I don't have to be as intense, so I can focus on different things. I'll say, cycling activities with the association during January and March will probably be limited, picks up later. So you then try to synchronize all these different diaries so that you're able to manage.
Wow. Yeah. Out of intrigue, the cycling.
Yes.
When did this love for cycling come in? And it's not a very common hobby in our country. So I'm fascinated by it. Yeah.
So it started about 2015.
Yeah.
So first I needed something, to stay fit and healthy.
Yes.
Believe it or not, I can cycle. The longest ride I've done is 320 kilometers in a day.
320 kilometers.
325 to be specific. Last in 2022. But I can't run 10 kilometers because I have a knee problem.
Yeah.
So because cycling is low impact, I was able to switch into. So I used to play football and things like that. But I got injured. I needed an alternative.
Exactly.
Now, what cycling does for me is a number of different things. So first, it's for my health and wellness, but also you can, in a very short space of time, you can be in the middle of nowhere. Silence. I love it. Like quiet, nothing, still. And for me, like you're not thinking about anything. So it helps me clear my mind.
Yes,
right?
Yes, exactly.
I'll be meditating on a scripture. I'll be thinking about a thought for next week for social media. a thought will come. I don't even do it deliberately. I just let my mind wander when I'm on a bike ride. And I'll get a thought or two on different things. I need to do this. I'll record a short voice note just to remind me when I'm done. Yes. So I do a lot of my thinking actually when I'm on a bicycle in the middle of nowhere. Because it's not a place where you can be distracted by too many things. At a certain point, your only thought is, how am I going to climb this mountain? And just that removal of clutter and noise in your mind is what I love about it.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing for me. It's a big part of what I do. I do it 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I try and cover maybe 200 kilometers in a week.
In a week?
Yeah. I'll do some sessions before work twice, and then on Saturday a longer one. once I've done that, good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think, with that said, I think this is a great question to close our interview. So how do you recharge and rejuvenate?
Yeah.
After all these responsibilities, how do you rest? And this is also, I was actually telling my wife the other day that I don't know if I've figured out how to rest.
How to rest.
You know, and I'm asking you, genuinely trying to see,
so
like,
how
you
do
know,
you do?
how do you re-energize? How do you recenter?
So
Refocus?
it's a number of different things. So the cycling, I'll explain. It is a big part of what I do and my own program. The content creation, actually, because I'll be doing something which is not typical work. And I'll have a thought that I'll be developing. So I know it's not resting, right? In the
but I guess you are passionate about
but
it.
I'm passionate about it. Gives you that direction, that ability. Your question, rejuvenation. My routine, especially around church, is very, very important, and how I get involved there. I look forward to service on a Sunday, on a Wednesday. If there's an activity happening there, because it's like an energy boost for me for the week. I do take some time out and do as little as possible. Sit, sleep, watch a game of football with my son. I don't watch much football nowadays as a Manchester United fan, but hey, these times come and go. And then, so I do set aside time to just rest and recuperate. Usually Sunday afternoons, try to do as little as possible. And once that is done, I feel sort of energized, but also connecting with different people and having different types of conversations. Me and you have sat down for like agendaless discussions, right? And then just had conversations about all manner of things. And I think such things quite energizing.
Which gave me sleepless nights.
You had some food for thought, right?
I did.
Likewise. And it's those sorts of things which really help. But I think also just looking forward, right? And thinking about what the possibilities are. I started at a certain point. I told you about the question of purpose.
Yes.
And what is it that I'm trying to do, and what will my legacy be? Right? As a professional, as an individual, I know as a fact that country senior partner and PwC, I'm very privileged to be doing that. But that is what I do. It's not who I am. Right? It's my job. And all these things that we've discussed, right, in terms of, we touched on them differently, they're things that I do, but they're not necessarily who I am. Right? So who I am, and trying to adapt that and figure it out, especially as I go into the next phase of my career and what the future holds, is really what also keeps me sort of refreshed, because I say, okay, fine, so I'm here, and even in the middle of a crisis, I say, okay, I'm here, but I'm going somewhere, and I'm going to get there. And we're going to move forward and continue to adapt, be relevant, have impact, etc. So I consciously think about that on a more regular basis than you could probably imagine, and it's that which gives me a lot of energy for what I need to do next, how I need to continue to evolve, because there's also an element of leadership which is evolutionary, right? People talk about this type of leader, but I know for a fact that different circumstances call upon different leadership qualities. So today you may be a servant leader, tomorrow you have to be transformational, tomorrow you have to be crisis. You're basically also responding to the environment around you. So thinking about it like that as well keeps me continuously energized about the possibilities of tomorrow, as well as what I have to continue to do today. And then it gives me the encouragement and zeal to keep forging ahead.
Wow. If you were to put a name to your next 20 years, I can already tell you are a planner. Planning 3 weeks ahead. I'm already thinking like I need to go home and just tell the guys, like, you know,
let's get this.
I'll give you a 3-week plan. But how do you envision the next 20 years for you?
So it goes back to and this is why I'm very set, I think, over time with what I think I'm about, right? And that is the pursuit of relevance.
Of relevance.
So that is what I think my ethos is, if I was to put it like that.
Yeah.
So when I look at the next 20 years, I spoke earlier about lean not on your own understanding. All your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your path. I know where I think I'm going to be, where I'd like to be. The idea is becoming clear. How is not yet. Okay? So there is a role I need to play as a leader of this particular business for the time being, for Zambia, for the network, for the people that are here, and it's my prayer that I'll do that to the best of my ability to drive it forward. I've obviously got children who, God willing, will be obviously much older. So what kind of children will they become? And where will they be? So I've got a big stake to play. I've got a wife and our marriage, and what does that mean for society and community and driving forward. There is also a role for what I do in the ministry, right? And with real impact and helping people, because I think that's a big part of answering my question of in 400 years time, how the people who are there will be there and all that I lived. So it's those sorts of things. What exactly? I'm not 100% sure, but I know a lot of it will be about continuing to try to be relevant for my community, my society, my church, my family, my organization, my nation, Zambia. All of those are definitely there. Maybe a bit more in the global perspective as well, depending on how different things unfold. But it's an exciting time to be here. I said, look, at the end of the day, we were born for a time such as this. We are here at this time. That means this is our time.
Exactly.
So it's about making it count. And hopefully I'd have inspired a generation as well in the process.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for sharing your mind and your ethos. It's a very powerful one, I think. And I think even answering the question of the future, I think it's an amazing ethos-wise, because as long as you are monitoring that you are relevant, even in the dynamics of life may bring different circumstances in the future, but if you are always positioned in relevance, then you'll always be valuable. So I think that's a good take home. But it's been an honor.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you.
Looking forward to doing this 20 years from now.
Do it every year.
A review.
Review every year. See, make sure we're on track.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Cheers.